Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Police Commission, Trumbull Police Commission. Can I get a roll call so I know who's here? Vivian,
Chairman Baldwin,
here?
Vice Chairman Magliocco,
Hello.
Commissioner Treves,
Here.
Commissioner Rosano, Commissioner Samory.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Can we take a moment to do a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Can we have a short moment of silence, in respect for fallen police officers and first responders? This time, I'd like to invite the public. Is anybody in the public listening in to see if they have any comments they'd like to share with the commission? Are there anybody from the public who'd like to be heard?
There's nobody from the public who's listening right now.
Okay, we'll close public comment. Next item is the approval of the November 9th, 2020 Police Commission meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to, we'll have a motion, ask for a vote to approve the minutes of the meeting. Aye,
Aye.
it's unanimous. Any, none? Any abstention? Okay. Next on the agenda is correspondence. Chief?
Hey, Vivian, were you trying to say something?
Yes, Commissioner Samory needs to abstain. He was not present at the meeting.
Okay,
Dang. Prior meeting. Okay, thank you. Under correspondence, the first letter you see is a letter from the first selectman, Vicky Tesoro, thanking the police department and the members of the department for the what I'd like to call great work they did response, not only the work in capturing the person, but the robbery and shooting we had at Trumbull Mall with Zales jewelry store a few weeks ago. The response from the patrol officers I felt was excellent. If you're not aware of it, at the same time, our patrol division and traffic unit was actually working a fatal accident, and they were at that scene on Canoe Brook Road. And so needless to say, when this other call came in for this robbery, it was, they were in two different places, and they had to shift their work down to the mall. They closed off the entrances and exits as quickly as possible, the first officers to arrive, which actually led our first responding officers to detecting somebody who was trying to get around them from being locked into the mall property. And they alerted Lieutenant Weir, who was responding to the scene as the Detective Bureau commander, that this car had actually driven over the sidewalk, almost struck Officer Pies, who was stopping traffic, and took off. So Lieutenant Weir chased the car into the city of Bridgeport, ultimately down Madison Avenue, where the car became involved in an accident with another car in an intersection. The suspect's car became disabled, and Lieutenant Weir and now Officer Greg Lee approached the suspect car. And remember, this person's already fired at least one round in the mall, and he's believed to be armed at that time. He refuses to get out of his car. And I thought what Lieutenant Weir decided to do at that point, because he had approached the car, was make a tactical retreat. He still kept the vehicles disabled. So the guy wasn't going to drive off anywhere, but instead of continuing to engage up at the car with the person armed, he still held the scene, but he made a tactical retreat, backing off, he and Officer Lee. And we just kind of waited the guy out. Bridgeport arrived. They helped with negotiations. They helped keep the area secure. They negotiated with this fellow for just about 6 hours, who was armed the entire time. And at one point actually fired his weapon once at police officers. And I felt that between the Bridgeport officers and the Trumbull officers who were still on scene, there was extremely great restraint on their part. And I just thought that everybody did a really good job. Ultimately, at about 12:30 in the morning, the fellow ended up surrendering, and he's been charged with multiple crimes, one of which is attempted murder for firing at the officers. So I want to, congratulate everybody who worked that scene, and Lieutenant Weir for picking up the pursuit of the vehicle, Lieutenant Smith, who handled the scene with the patrol officers responding, the detectives that arrived. It's just a great collaborative effort. I was very happy to get this person off the street as quickly as they did, identified him that night, made an arrest. And he is being held on $800,000 bond by the court. The judge set bond. So I just can't say enough about the work they did. I was very happy with the way the officers responded. And, Lieutenant Weir and Officer Lee, them making this tactical retreat, that all that stuff comes from training. And if we don't train our officers as much as we have been doing, that's where they get that from. And that's where all that sometimes mundane training and it's expensive at times because we have to set the training. If we don't do that, this situation could have turned much different, which could have been very long lasting and difficult for the town, the department, and the officers involved. So that's a perfect example of why training is so critical to the jobs that we do. And it was a great job. Deputy Chief Cinto went down and worked with Bridgeport all night. Assistant Chief Burns came and met with me at the Trumbull Mall and helped coordinate efforts there. And there were a lot of things happening between the fatal accident. We had media showing up at the mall. We still had a crime scene that was active with victims that were understandably very upset. We needed to take statements. We needed to work the crime scene, collect evidence. Our detectives collected, and there was just a lot going on. But I'm very happy, and obviously, Vicky Tesoro she sent a nice letter recognizing all of the officers. So that's our first piece of correspondence for tonight.
Well, I think the entire commission applauds the efforts of the men and women that were on duty that night and the leadership that was shown. And like you said before, the restraint that was shown. It could have been a much different result. So we can add the whole commission's congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. The next is a handwritten letter from a woman who thanks the officers for their work that they do. Believe it or not, this is somebody who we actually arrested, but the officers treated her with respect and did their jobs like they're supposed to. As she says in the letter, she's in a difficult situation, but was just thankful for the officers and the way they, the professionalism they showed her when arrested, when in our custody. The next letter is something from a resident who was scammed over the phone for some money. And she sent a letter to the department thanking Detective Sergeant Coppola, who helped her with that, who was compassionate, who worked the case and actually retrieved the money for her. So she's, there's no loss to her. He was actually able to get the money back. So that was good work on his part. The next letter is just a letter of thanks to the officers of the department from a family in Trumbull. Nothing specific but just a letter of thanks and some breakfast they brought in. And then the next letter is from one of our finance board members, actually I believe the chair, Lisa Valenti, just sent a nice card to the department thanking them and that she was thinking of them in response to their work for the robbery and shooting that night. And just kind of telling everybody that she appreciates all the work they do. The next is an email from somebody who works in Trumbull who reported that somebody she had, an ex-boyfriend she had been involved with, who lives in a different town in the area, was threatening her and others through social media. So our patrol officer Anderson took the case, worked the case. As you can see, she said he took it seriously, doing what other departments would not do for her. We ended up doing what's called a risk warrant, and we served that warrant in the town of Stratford and seized a multitude of guns and ammunition from this fella, and ultimately arrested him on an arrest warrant. This is somebody who threatened some police officers, some prosecutors, and judges. So he was locked up that evening. The next is an email I received, all the Connecticut chiefs did, from Darren Stewart, who's the Stonington chief, and it was just him thanking everybody for the work during the elections. It was there were some concerns before the elections occurred, and from the Secretary of State's office and on the chief's parts, but everything went along well. I don't know of any incidents that occurred in Trumbull. Well, none occurred in Trumbull that were disruptive to voting, and as far as I know, none in the state. Next are the calls for services. As you can see, we had 1,408 calls for services the last month, which is down from October and down from last November. Don't know really what to attribute that to. I do know the pandemic has slowed things quite a bit, but as you can see, it's less than what we've had in the prior months, which were during the pandemic as well. Below that is motor vehicle enforcement. There were 72 traffic stops in the month of November. We're still working to engage more with the public with traffic stops and just for enforcement, not necessarily tickets, but enforcement and the visibility. It deters things. Still working on that. That's obviously in the last month or 2 months has been more of a concern of the pandemic spreading. So I'm sure more of a concern on everybody's part in the community and within the department also. The next page calls for services. There were a total of 71 criminal complaints. Thefts from vehicles are still high, 18. 2 burglaries, 6 stolen cars, and 45 larcenies. Well, I'm talking about motor vehicle theft and thefts from cars. I've been speaking with the first selectman very recently, and the chair of the commission. And I think we're going to try to work a little bit with our local delegation and try to get some form of reform in the juvenile justice system, because I can tell you when the officers do apprehend people, most of them are juveniles under 18 years of age, and they tell us they've got multiple cases of breaking into cars or stealing cars, and there's just no deterrence because there's no consequences to the actions. So myself and a lot of chiefs feel that there's some type of reform is needed to stop this. I know it's difficult. I know some people, there's a lot less going on, so kids aren't in school as much as they were. If they are, they're doing it maybe through a hybrid way, but we need to do something to stop this, or at least slow it to a much more of a manageable level.
Chief, is this something that's organized, or is it just individuals that are out there on their own roaming? And
it's combination. It's all over the state and New York State. It's all over. And many of our cars end up in some of the larger cities, whether it's Waterbury, Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, and even the suburbs. We recover some of them with shell casings in them or bullet holes in them because they were used in drive-by shootings. So some of these people, when they're going out, they are, possibly armed. So that's another reason why we ask people, lock your cars, lock your homes, take your valuables out. Because all of these cars that are stolen have the keys left in them, every single one. And every car that's been broken into, it hasn't been broken into because the door's unlocked and they're able to go through them. So the best way to really combat this, at least at a local level and for a resident's sake, is to lock their cars and take their valuables and things out. I can't tell you how much we just don't get them. We get maybe 1 or 2 a year that are actually broken into. All of the others are open cars. And people
Mhm.
know that. So they come to the suburbs and they do this. I can tell you, we had this calendar year alone, 153% increase in stolen cars in Trumbull and 167% increase in car break-ins. So
Wow.
we catch them, our guys catch them, but they're just released. You know, all we can do with a juvenile is give them a ticket, have a parent or guardian come get them, we give them a ticket that they have to appear in court. That's it. And there's very minimal consequences to these cases. And we had a fellow, a 15-year-old we picked up about a month ago for breaking into cars. He was in court the day before, and he had 6 pending cases similar to what we had. And we've had many others, the same thing. I know Assistant Chief Burns and Deputy Chief Cinto both, you know, we scratch our heads all the time because it's like the officers are kind of spinning their wheels out there because they'll make arrests and nothing happens. So
Understood. Yeah.
you're not going to be really deterred much if nobody's holding you accountable in a sense.
Yeah.
Moving on, we had 130 burglar alarms in the month. The next pages are the department statistics, 1,401 cases throughout the month, ranging from anything, the 911 hangups to alarms, anything we do for the most part gets a case number. That's how many we had for the month of November. After that are the school resource officer reports. Officer Bartosik, who's our Madison Middle School school resource officer, reports some of the work that he did throughout the month. One of the things I wanted to bring up was a dedication ceremony at Jane Ryan Elementary School, renaming the lane there Mary Ellen Way. Mary Ellen Bolton was principal there, and she passed away recently after a struggle with cancer, and the town renamed the road there after her. I knew her not as well as Commissioner Baldwin, but she was really a wonderful woman. And I just wanted to mention that he attended that, and it was really a loss to the town. Officer Duva, who works at the high school, you see the cases he worked on throughout the month. And then some of the fire drills and medical response team meetings he goes to, and all sorts of other things that he's involved in, juvenile review board, fire drills, lockdowns, things like that. The last page for the school resource officers is Officer Federowicz, who was at Hillcrest, and the cases that he handled, the harassment case, a bus accident, an argument, dispute, and then some other calls he was involved in. TPAWD he's involved in now. He's new to SRO program this year. The arrest summary, 32 adult arrests in the month of November. Then the traffic report, you can see what we have. The officer Siljamaki has the supervisors, the areas where he gets complaints from the community. He puts a memo out to the supervisors asking the officers to conduct enforcement in those areas. Then the complaints he handled, he had 44 cases in the month of November, including the fatal accident that he and our traffic team and the Monroe traffic team, which is part of ours, investigated on November 20th. And there was no grant activity during the month of November. We had no grant for DUI or distracted driving during that month. Detective Bureau case report, they have 45 open cases. They've been working some serious cases in the Detective Bureau for a while now, and they're doing a good job. Some of them just last quite a while before you're able to bring them to an arrest or some form of clearance. The monthly status report, I don't know if there's any questions there, but just so the public knows, if anybody's here actually on here right now, or so the commission's aware of it, when cars get broken into or stolen, our detective bureau follows up on that. It's not like an officer just takes a report and it gets filed somewhere and that's the end of it. If we can link it to other car breaks or other car thefts through DNA swabbing, if the car gets recovered, no matter where it is, they'll do that. And that's how we make a lot of arrests in some of these cases. It may take several months to get there because if we do a DNA swabbing, we have to send it to the state lab to see if that person's DNA is on file. If it is, it'll come back to us, but then they'll follow up with it. And then we have, just a listing of the more serious cases throughout the month that they've been involved in. Training report, Officer Fedor does that. He talks about, one thing I did want to point out is that Lieutenant Falkenstein and Officer Fedor are trained to teach fair and impartial policing to our officers. And they've both continued to be trained or train at the police academy. And you can see the fourth line down, Lieutenant Falkenstein participated that in November. To get the cadet report, a couple of meetings there, basically just planning meetings, the sick report. We had 165 shifts of sickness this month, which you look at it and you go, wow, that's pretty high. But some of that is attributed to quarantining of officers who may have been exposed to somebody who had a COVID case. And we can't have them at work, so they have to stay out for 14 days before they're able to come back. So I just wanted to point that out. I don't have the exact breakdown. I'm not sure if Assistant Chief Burns has it or not, the breakdown.
I do. From that large number, we had 82 of those cases involved a few of our officers who were tested positive for the virus, and the remainder were affected by the isolation that was mandated by others who they were close to that had tested positive. So the number is essentially half of what's displayed on the table there.
Yep. And we're kind of experiencing the same a lot of other police departments are experiencing there, where people have to be quarantined when they are exposed, or if there's any contact tracing and we have to quarantine them. I can tell you, because of one arrest of somebody who fought with the officers and actually bit one of our officers, we had 4 people quarantined. And the fellow who they were trying to arrest and bit our officer was COVID positive. And he knew that at the time that occurred. So he's been charged, and but the officer who's bit has to go for some shots for tetanus and some other shots. But we also had to test the officers for COVID, and thankfully none of them of those 4 were positive. So moving on, the budget status sheet. I don't know if there's any questions there. Myself or the Assistant Chief can certainly answer any questions you have there. We're doing pretty good year to date. I think we're just about 2% under. The concern we do have is the salary line, because the officers had 2 years of raises and retroactive pay a few months ago that was not budgeted for in this budget. So that's another reason. That's one reason why the salary line is up over what we budgeted for. And it's over by about 1%, but it's something we have to just kind of work on. And we can't do much about that with the people on payroll, but we try to make it up in other areas. I don't know, Assistant Chief Burns, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
That being the full-time salary line being the largest portion of any account in our budget, that slight tracking ahead will have a larger impact by the end of the year. But we're working to balance that with other accounts that we hope will not be drawn as much. It's a different year, of course, with the virus being what it is. It's had an impact on a variety of our expenses. So we're following it as we progress through the year, and I'm confident that we'll be able to end the year in good shape.
Question, regarding the state's passage of the Police Accountability Act, there's some provisions in there that have to do with testing and training of officers coming in this fiscal year, which may not have been budgeted for. Do we have any idea what that amount is and what we're
Yeah.
talking?
That's absolutely true. I'll let the assistant chief speak to that. He and I were talking about the upcoming budget as it is, and he's pretty well versed in that.
Yeah, the police accountability bill that was enacted, I believe, September of this year with essentially no advance notice. The immediate problem was the impact that it had on our immediate finances in the current fiscal year. And secondly, the impact it will have on our future in the next fiscal year. We're in the process right now of preparing the budget proposal, and that's one of the things that we'll see having a significant impact. The unexpected burden of this additional testing and training requirements and so forth that were put on all the departments in the state. The second item would be the salaries that the chief referred to. Since the police union only passed we've only settled with the town, the current contract, but that would include at least 3 years of raises. So that will appear to be significant when we bring you the overview of our proposal at next month's meeting. Well, back to the immediate impact, the accountability billing included requirements, one of which included additional testing for officers' recertification, which occurs every 3 years. And we do have a portion of the department that's would be up for recertification each of their training years, which generally follows our fiscal year. And without having the benefit of advanced notice for these new provisions, there is a requirement for a urinalysis test for very specific things required for all officers as part of their recertification. And seeing as we are already in the midst of our current fiscal year, we have no provision for the cost that will be incurred by that. So of course, it puts an immediate burden on us, and to be able to find the funding for that will be a challenge. But we'll do it. It's a requirement. It'll have to be done in any case. And hopefully I'll have more information for you in the next month or two as how we expect to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Burns. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions of the chief or the assistant chief?
Not at this time.
Okay. So we'll move on to old business. There's nothing listed, but possibly Commissioner Maglioka can give us an update on the building renovation.
Yes, thanks, Ray. So we had a meeting last week. We're in the home stretch. Bismarck has addressed a lot of the punch list items, and some of the other defects that were with furniture. Glenn has been on top of all that. We're still waiting on the town contractor that they have for the fence. There's been a backup in materials. The fence is going to be key in help buffering that sound along the side of the building. But it being the winter and the neighbors being closed, I know we have been able to use the range from time to time for what we need. But again, we're waiting. Glenn was part of the meeting. Glenn and George were part of the meeting, and we're just really waiting on the fence so then we could finalize the project. Do you have anything else to add, Glenn, since you're really on top of this?
You're right on track there. Right up to today, Bismarck was here with the plumber replacing some defective items, and we're right down to the final 2 or 3 pieces that they're trying to push through as soon as this week. I did want to note that we did step over that mention of Bismarck stepping up on the replacement of the bearings in the range ventilation unit in order to remedy that problem in short order. They do have an interest in successful completion of the project, and were generous enough to see that unit was taken care of, and certainly expedited our progress of the project overall. So I appreciate that on behalf of Bismarck's generosity there.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions of either the Assistant Chief or Commissioner Maglioka?
I do not.
No, they've done a remarkable job on this renovation. If you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at it, they've really done a great job, and they've stayed right on top of it, and they're both to be congratulated. So thank you both. Next item on the agenda is new business, the discussion and approval to install centerline rumble strips on Edison Road and Shelton Road. I believe Deputy Chief Cinto, you're speaking to that?
Yeah. In November, we got a letter from the state. They're offering to install the rumble strips on roads in town free of cost to the town. There's certain criteria that's listed in the letter that you gave you. There had to be at least 2,000 vehicles per day on the road, speed limit at 35 miles an hour or higher. Lanes have to be 14 feet wide. Pavement has to have been recently repaved in the last 3 years. Low residential density. Houses are supposed to be 100 feet from the road. I'm not sure if we're going to qualify for that. But anyways, traffic went out and took a look at the roads that we had that meet this criteria, and they came up with a total of 2, Shelton Road and Edison Road. Plan is to schedule, I guess they're going to be looking at 2022 to install the rumble strips. They said they're not going to be as deep as normal, so it'll create less noise for the people who live on those roads. From what I'm seeing, it's like a 50% reduction in accidents from studies that they've done across the country where these rumble strips have been installed. In Connecticut, you're talking about a 30% reduction on the roads that they've installed these rumble strips on, but that's pretty preliminary right now. So the 2 roads we did come up with were Shelton Road and Edison Road. The deadline is tomorrow. We need to sign off on this and email it to DOT if we want to do this.
Okay. So is that your recommendation?
Yeah, look, I'd like to see it work and see if it actually has any benefit. It's going to be experimental as far as we're concerned, but from all the results I've been seeing, it's pretty positive.
Does any commissioners have any questions of Deputy Chief Cinto?
I do, Ray. Highway's okay with this? I know with the plows and stuff, has no effect on any of the maintenance of the roads or anything?
No, they actually carve out grooves in the pavement, so that shouldn't affect plowing.
Are these 2 roads that traditionally are higher in accidents? And
Well, no, not really. We had to go by the criteria that they listed, and basically all we're doing is applying. They're going to review the roads that we submit. They're going to have the final say on whether they're going to install them or not. So this is more of an application process on our part.
I know it's all about safety, but I find them pretty annoying personally, but you know, I understand why they're there. When you
drive over them.
Yeah. But if it's for safety, it's for a good cause. So no opposition at all.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Those 2 roads, certainly good ones for this, but Daniels Farm Road, is the reason we didn't pick that one is because it hasn't been paved in the last 3 years?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. And I think that the density of the residences up there is another. Like I said, they want the houses 100 feet from the roadway. I'm not sure how many houses in Trumbull are 100 feet from the road.
No, I can't think of too many.
Usually 50 to 75 foot setback. So I'm not sure that that's going to impact our request here.
You're right.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the recommendation or the application to submit to the state DOT?
So moved.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I think I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The last item on the agenda, new business, is the approval of the meeting schedule. It's on the back page of under new business. If you want to take a quick look at it, if sometime in the future, there's some kind of a conflict that arises, we could by consensus can agree to move the meeting, but that'll be the schedule that'll be posted on the town's website.
Well, the December 14th meeting is my mother's birthday, so Ray, we might have to look at that one. Otherwise, I'm fine with the rest of the schedule.
Well, I'm not going to conflict with your mother's birthday, Chris.
I couldn't resist.
Never going to happen. And I see Vivian was sensitive to the November meeting being on November 9th this year. Thank you, Vivian.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the schedule.
I
I'll
so
make-
move, Al Zamri.
I'll
Okay,
second.
second. No discussion. I'll come to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Not. All right, before we close the meeting, I wish everybody a happy holiday. Be safe, be well, and we will see you on January 12th.
Hey, Happy New Year and holidays to everybody.
Happy holidays, all.
Take care, everybody. Have a good holiday. Thanks.
Chairman, we didn't adjourn yet. Who made the motion?
Oh, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
We're
Motion
gonna
to
hold the
adjourn.
meeting
To
open.
adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a second.
There.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank
and
you.
Happy New Year
Happy
coming up for everyone involved.
Have a
And
good
Bill,
night.
thank you for all your.
Vivian was on overtime. She'd stayed overnight for that if you didn't close the meeting right.
Okay. See
Have a
you
good
all.
night, everyone.